Hey everyone, it's me, Undead Viking. I'm here with a video review for you. The game that I am going to be reviewing is this game. It's called Galaxy of Trian, or Trian. I think it's Trian. I never asked for the pronunciation. I do apologize for that. As you can guess by this artwork, it is a beautiful looking game, and as you can probably guess with the name Galaxy in it, it is a space themed game. And if you've watched these videos of mine, you know that I am a sucker for sci-fi themes, and I've enjoyed this game a great deal. Now, what this game is, it's a tile laying game. So if you're familiar with that, it is a game that the players themselves will be building the board. And what you'll be doing is you'll be creating this galaxy. The idea is that the Trian or the Trian are this like ancient race of aliens or whatever that have since left this galaxy. They've been wiped out. Nobody knows what happened to them, kind of thing. And the players represent these upstart, relatively speaking, races that have stumbled upon this area, and they're going to start exploiting it for the resources and the power that are within it. And as you explore the area, like I said, you'll be placing down these tiles that are going to create star systems, which are going to create these gas nebulas, and you're going to vie for control of these things. And you're going to use like you're using your alien emissaries and research stations and space stations in an attempt to basically lay claim to the largest areas of the galaxy. So when the last tile is placed, you will have a majority control and then win the game. Now, this isn't a game of like dice combat or something like that. If you're looking for like something along those lines, no, this is more of an area control game. And a game of clever tile placement and a clever use of your resources as well. But let me show you how to play the game like I always do. And then we'll come back here and we will discuss exactly why I dug the game. And hopefully somewhere along the way you'll figure out if it's something you will want to enjoy. And then you can go ahead and back the Kickstarter and get a copy of it for yourself once it gets published. Alright, cool. So here is how to play Galaxy of Trian, or Trian. These are the player boards for the game of Galaxy of Trian. This is the really cool wooden holder for all the little tiles that you'll be placing, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. These are the multicolored minerals and crystals that you'll be cultivating. Those are basically worth extra points at the end of the game, so you want to gather those. The different colors don't matter right now, but with expansions they're going to be used for different things. So the player boards are pretty self-explanatory. They have your little character race up here. They have your scoring track. You have 1, 0 to 9 to 90, and then the hundreds, and so on and so forth, like so. And there's the open spots for your different things. This is for your emissaries. This is for your research stations. This is for your space stations. And if you're playing the Conquest version of the game, these will be for your spaceships. I'm not going to go into that during this overview, but I will touch on that in my conclusion. Just so you can see, I've set up the blue player board here. And you can, I apologize, it's very glossy, but I don't want to tip it too much. But you can see, you just take those off as you're playing, and you move the cubes, what have you, and the different spots, including the spaceships over here. And I apologize for the lighting there. But anyway, so each person, depending on the number of players, you get a certain number of these things. 2 players, you get all of them. With a 3-player game, you lose 1 of each of these, and for a full 4-player game, you only get 7 of each, and then 2 of these: 2 space stations, 7 research, and 7 emissaries. The reason for that is because there's so many people and there's so much limited space. You kind of have to have a limit to the number of these little people, these emissaries, and also this different stations to be placing on the board. Now, when you play the game, you'll be placing these tiles. I'm just going to show you some of these real quick here. And I really dig the art style. So, like, you'll be placing them, and you'll be trying to make like either, like, you can notice how this is like a planetary system, like so here, and then you'll notice also like here's a nebula cloud. That is what's called a Trian extractor. That would be part of a nebula, so you can see you can build these things, and so as the game progresses, you will slowly but surely build these little spots, and you can see that there's that little flight path there to connect the planetary system together and what have you. Now, I'm not going to bore you with placing these tiles one by one. If you've played tile laying games, you know each person, you'll draw a tile and then you'll place one, and so on and so forth. And like I said, I don't want to bore you with that action. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like do the magic of video editing here. I'm going to show you. I'm going to kind of build up the board, and then I'm going to kind of show you how you close off different areas, how you then put your emissaries on those locations to establish dominance, and also then, like, scoring points and what have you. So, all right, here, I'm going to set up a board for you. I've gone ahead and set up a little preliminary board just so you can kind of see how this works. These tiles obviously are triangles, and one of the ways that you score points, and if you've played games like this will be kind of familiar to you, what you're going to be doing is if you can close off an area, then you'll get points. If you can close off a nebula, you'll get 1 point for each tile that consists of that nebula. So, in this case, if, like you see this one right here, if you had placed this tile here, you would have closed off that nebula. It's worth 1, 2, 3 points for closing that off. If you can close off a planetary system, like this one here, like placing, if you had placed that one there and closed off this planetary system, you would get 2 points per planet. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And plus, if you can see that if you place that there and close that off, you would have gotten those points as well. And so there's some here that aren't finished off. So you can see, like, there's this nebula here, but this area hasn't been closed off yet. But if you were to place a tile like so, then it would be worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. Even though it's very tiny, those are still connected and they're still worth points. Now, there's one thing here that that's a little odd that you might not see. This little green gas, that is just that's like a border, if you will, and it will close off certain areas. One of the interesting things about that is it actually does close off areas of outer space. So if you can somehow close off a chunk of outer space, and this is a very small chunk of outer space, but that's worth 3 points for each tile, and that's actually would be worth points as well. 3 for each of those spots, so that would be worth 6. So, like, when you play the game, you'll draw tiles, and if you can, like, place a tile like so, you'd count up the planets, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then you would, score those points. Some of the other things that you can end up doing is that you'll notice that, like, some of these big giant nebulas here, that is what's called an extractor over there, and I'll explain that in just a quick moment. I know you probably see that and wonder what that is, but some of the tiles won't actually like do anything. Like this one just has the planetary paths. And so if you place that on there like so, it just allows you to expand that out further. And so maybe then later you're placing this down, and so you can see you're building up this little planetary path, and then maybe you can, like, close that one off. The big thing is that you can't play it. It has to all fit. The pieces themselves have to actually, like, make sense. If you follow, you couldn't like for example, you couldn't place it like that. It doesn't hooking up with the nebula on either side. You can't just all of a sudden build something off to like so. And so it's a bit of a puzzle, but the tiles are made in such a way that you're always able to put something somewhere at some point. Now, if that was all the game was, it'd be pretty simple and it wouldn't be really inspiring. So instead, what the game puts into it, it puts into an area control situation. Each race will have their little emissaries, little tokens, these triangle tokens. And when you place a tile, you have the option of placing one of your emissaries on that tile. There are some restrictions, like you can't put one on a spot that has one of these Trian extractors. But like when you place this tile, like so, you could place one of your guys, and don't put them in the center, you put them on a corner just to show that they're located there. And so what happens is like, so let's just say that one got placed and there was a blue one here and a green one here and I need another blue one. So remember, this is all part of the same nebula, if you will. And finally, a green one here. Okay, so you have a dominance type of thing. So you have to, oh, that's a space station. That should not be, whoops, I grabbed the wrong tile. I apologize. So what you have is you total up to see, how many each person has, and then whoever has the most would establish dominance and have control over that nebula. And so what happens is that then that person kicks out the other person, and so since the loser gets thrown out like so. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the person that closes it wins it. It could be somebody who might not have anybody in the nebula. They'd still get the points or whatever, but you'd still figure out the dominance of the situation. Now, after that is done, the player that wins gets to decide how many of these emissaries they want to take back and put on their player board. Now, the reason why you want to leave them there, because of the fact that obviously they're useful in taking over and controlling the spots. The reason why you leave them there is because also on your turn, because the turn's like the first thing you do in your turn is you mine minerals if you're able to do so. The second thing you do is you place a tile, and then you place a. If you're then able to as well, you place an emissary on that tile. Now, if you choose not to do that, you can just take 2 victory points, but most of the time you're placing an emissary on there. And then if you score points or whatever, you do that for closing off an area or what have you. But then after doing that, you can execute actions. And actions are like you can go ahead and actually elevate these emissaries to basically making them into research stations. Now, research stations are important because they increase the technology level of the area that you're on, and they also can be used then to extract more minerals from the area. Now, you wouldn't have to for this one because these extractors are already placed in from the old Trian situation, the old Trian race that had placed those in the nebulas to begin with. Oh, and I should also mention that when you form the nebula, you do actually put the resources in there, and you total the number of tiles: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then +1 for every extractor. So this one would have 8 of these little gems in here. And I'll just drop those down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wasn't too many. There we go. Because on the next turn for green, when they get to obtain minerals, they would be able to take a gem off of that, and then they can keep that for points at the end of the game. Now, one of the other actions you can do is you can transform. You can transform into a space station. When space stations are considered level 2 technology instead of level 1. That's important in final scoring. Just bear with me when I get to that. But the big thing about space stations is they are able to actually extract 2 minerals each turn and not just 1. So, and you can't. One of the things is you can't elevate one of the Trian extractors that are already there. You can't elevate those for that. Now, the same thing as far as like establishing dominance goes with the planets as well. When you place a planet, you will place one of your tokens on it, like so. And so when eventually, like, if you take over a planetary system, then you would, like, same thing. You would establish dominance in that area and be the person that's in charge of it. Now, if you have a situation where it's a tie, say like when these two got placed for this planetary system over here, there was a blue one on that planet and a green one on that. There's a tie. That's a draw. And what happens with the draw is that you still score the points for whoever closed off the area and closed off the planet, but then both the emissaries leave it and it's an uncontrolled area. It can eventually be taken over if you can teleport your people into. There's teleportation tiles that can be placed, and then you're able to put your emissaries into that, and they can teleport into someplace else on the board, take that over. But for the moment, it will be uncontrolled. There's one interesting thing. If somebody that isn't, that doesn't have any like any fight in the game, if you will. If the nebula is closed by a player that does not dominate or whatever, then what happens is the winner has to actually leave all of their emissaries in that area. They don't get the choice of like taking back which ones they want, which actually can be a very important thing to do to somebody. Yeah, okay, fine, you can take that over, but now you can't take any of your emissaries out of there until like there's certain situations. There's this thing called an exmitter that actually will eject them, and it's a tile that you can play, and I'll show you one of those tiles here in just a second. But so that's actually like a really big part of the game. Is like you basically say, yeah, okay, fine, have all these people on that thing, but now you don't have any more to place on the board, or you don't. Your number of emissaries that you have is actually pretty limited at that point. So, well, now that I've talked about some of those other tiles, let me show this to you real quick. Okay, this is a tile that has a teleport on it. Pretty pretty, huh? All right, so for the sake of this explanation, I'm just going to like pretend that the blue guy owns this planet system over here. And let's put one more on there just to make it look like it would actually happen that way. So when he places a teleportation spot like there, he has the ability then to take any of the emissaries that are located next to the teleporter, and he can then teleport them anywhere he wants. And I mean, well, there's limitations, like there's certain tiles, like, you know, the tile with the extractor that you can't teleport to, but then he could teleport them over there. So now that, like, that's a situation that it can be a controlled area because he's actually teleported into that location. The interesting thing is that if you were, like, say, if you were to place that here, you'd be able to actually, you can't affect the research, but you can actually affect the emissary and teleport an opponent's emissary to somewhere else as well. So it's not something like you actually enter, but once you place it down, you're able to then affect the things that are around you. Another thing that you have, I mentioned the exmitters, which is this big giant red spiky thing here. It looks like it should be in a movie, like one of those Hellraiser movies. But anyway, so an exmitter, when you place it, like, say, like, let's say, well, it can't, I need to find a place that actually, like, would fit. I do apologize, but let's just adjust the board a little bit here. Well, let's just say, like, it's right there or whatever. Any of the that's adjacent to, if there are any emissaries that are in those spots, immediately just get ejected out of there, and they go back to the person that owns them. And so that can actually be used to screw with somebody else, or can be used by yourself to gain back some of your emissaries, so you have those as resources. Finally, the last special tile is this guy. This is a trade station. And when you place a trade station down, and when you place one of your emissaries on it, what happens then is you actually then get to do 2 more of those actions. Those actions like creating a, elevating one of these guys into a space station or a research station, or any of those things I just talked about, as far as those abilities. So you're kind of giving up emissary, but you're gaining a lot of like actions to from doing so. So I mean, those are the 3 special tiles. And when you set up the game, these tiles that have this picture, you play this, or the exmitter or the teleporter, you place these face down in those stacks. So people, because they're powerful, you don't want people to know they're there, when you uncover them, so that it's kind of like you flip it over. Because when you take a tile out, you can use either side. And so when you pick it up and you see what's on the other side, that's when you're like, oh, okay, well, now I got this really cool tile that I can use. So finally, the game ends when you have used up all these tiles, and this is obviously this is going to be a much bigger map. For the sake of the gameplay portion of this video, I did go ahead and like make a kind of limited map, like I said. But with the final scoring, what happens is that you take the total number of tiles. So for every nebula. And mind you, you're going to be scoring tons of points in this game. That's why these player boards have like up to like 500, 600, 700. So, and especially when you get to the end, and I'll explain why. Because there's a lot of multiplication going on. So what happens is that the number of victory points a player receives for final scoring is, like, for a nebula, you take the total number of technology and level. So research ones are worth, a research station is worth 1, a space station is worth 2, and extractors are worth 1. So you take all of that, and then you multiply that by the number of tiles of the nebula. So in this situation, like let's say we had a research station here, you'd have 1, 2, and then you'd have 3, 4, 5. 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'd be worth 30 points at the end of the game if that was your nebula and you had all the technology within it. So, and you'll be scoring that for each of the nebulas that you own. So, let's say blue over here had this little 3-spot nebula with a research station and a space station in it. That'd be a total technology of 3, because 2 and 3. I'm sorry. This is those are both research stations. A space station like that. That'd be 3 tiles. That'd be worth 9 points. Not as much, but every little bit counts and stuff. Oh, and I should mention that for every gem that you've extracted, because remember you can do that at the beginning of each turn. For every one of these that you have, they're worth 3 points each at the end of the game. Now, when you score a planetary system, because on a planetary system you're allowed to place these guys as well. So if you have a space station on your planetary system, you take that is worth a multiplier of you count up the number of planets of the system, you count up the number of emissaries you have. So here we have 2 emissaries, 3 planets, so that's 5. And if you have a space station in there, you take that number times 10. So that would be worth 50 points there. Now, if it's just a lowly research station, and notice the space station worth 10 because of the fact that the space station is really good at both removing the minerals out of the nebula, but also for the multiplier as well, because it's 2 levels of technology. So that's why it's worth 10. If you use a research station, it's worth 4. So you have a situation there, once in 5, you'd have 3 planets, 2 emissaries, 5 times 4 is 20. So it'd still be worth a lot of points, but obviously the times 10 really adds a ton there at the end. And so, and then you total all of that. You total each spot that each person controls, each planetary section they control, each nebula they control, add in the 3 points per mineral that they have, and then whoever has, obviously, the most points will win the game. If you end up with a draw, which I have not had happen yet, it would be tough because there's tons of points going around. The number of, whoever has the most, whoever has the most of these, the little gems, will win the game at that. That is the tiebreaker. So, there you go. I mean, I apologize. I didn't go, I didn't have, like I said, a big giant map for you to look at to learn how to play. I just, for the sake of the ease of seeing what these look like and everything like that, because the tiles really are freaking beautiful. I love the art, and the fact, and one of the things about it is like the art, the planets themselves and stuff on the actual tiles. I mean, you don't run into a lot of them that look exactly the same. I mean, this is a prototype that was given to me, but this is a really high level prototype, and they've really done their work. So, all right, so let me go ahead and tell you exactly what I think about the game, and I'll touch on the conquest portion of the game that I did not show you during this gameplay portion of the video. All right, before I exactly tell you what I really liked about the game, I want to touch on the fact that the deluxe version, I showed you kind of like the basic game right then and there. And I invite you to go read the rules that are located on the Kickstarter project. You can check those out. I didn't really go into the deluxe conquest version of the game, mostly because for time-wise. But I want to just kind of go over that really quickly. I mentioned on the board, I hinted at it when I pointed out the little spaceships. And the difference between the other game and this one is that with the spaceships, you have a lot more mobility. And you're able to, and in a lot of ways, it's a much better game, but it is also a more complex game, if you will. With the spaceships, you're able to block certain areas. You're able to use them as extractors to gain more materials and so on and so forth. And the game itself kind of opens it up a few more doors. Now, I like the deluxe version. I like playing with that conquest aspect of it, because finally your spaceships, they can actually fight, and you actually get victory points if you're the one that initiates combat and destroys your opponent's ships. So there's that aspect of the game as well, because you have the two types of ships, and you basically there's the rogue ships that are kind of like the small fast ones, and then you have the frigates or whatever, and they can destroy those pretty easily. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that it opens up different areas and different abilities for you to score victory points, and so it's a very, very nice addition to the game with the deluxe version of the game, if you will. But I've had fun with the original one. I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't have fun with the deluxe one, but it opened up so many more different levels of point scoring and gamery, if you will, the mechanisms of it, if you will, that I honestly, I didn't get to play it as much as I wanted to. I think also the fact is that the original game, I played it maybe a half dozen times, and it still was showing things to me, and I was still getting excited about playing it, and I was really looking forward to actually when that version of the game maybe got a little stale, or maybe when I finally got through the discovery process. And I've talked about that in some of my blogs about how I really enjoy those first few 10 plays of a game, where the game is kind of revealing itself to you and you're slowly figuring it out, and then the game kind of grows boring for me, because it's just okay, well, now I know everything about this game, and there's nothing left for it to teach me. There's nothing left for it to nothing hidden within it. So I purposely have been waiting for the game to get kind of stale and what have you before I branched out. And it's kind of like that little Easter egg waiting for me at the end of the path, and when I can go down that path whenever I want. So, but in the interests of the review, I did go ahead and play that the other day with some of my friends, and we really liked it. We really liked the aspect of it. Like I said, I invite you to read the rules for that portion. I won't do it justice technically, because it adds a whole nother level to the game that was really enjoyable. But right now, I kind of want to master the basic game, if you will. So that being said, back to the basic game and what I liked about it. Well, I mean, I already mentioned the art, and the artwork is absolutely fantastic. As with any tile laying game, there is something so wonderful and so beautiful about playing it and being able to see what you've created, and you can kind of see the different space stations and what have you hooked together, and the big giant nebula clouds and everything, and so there's that aspect. There's nothing, any tile laying game that I've played, I've always had fun after the fact, looking at what I've created and seeing what, and that's an aspect of the game that can't be denied. Now, as far as the actual gameplay, what I really liked is just the whole process of placing the tile down, which you've seen in many different games. But then it's that trick that I love about little majority area situations. That hope that, like, do you expand the nebula to a larger area? Do you try to to maybe, like, because if you think you're going to have control over it, do you try to make it bigger so you can cash in on more points, or do you close it off, so you can have it and then you can start extracting the minerals out of it, and that's probably the part of the game I like the most, as far as the whole resource collection and, like, trying to maximize the amount of resources that you can get out of your little nebulas that you're creating. I also, like I said, like, there's something to be said for making the cool little like planetary system situations. And honestly, the one thing about the game is that the outer space point scoring ability, when you close off a chunk of outer space, people miss that a lot when I'm playing, because you're so caught up in, like, the art and the planets and the gas clouds and whatever. And it's really easy, if people aren't paying attention, to find that perfect little tile in the perfect little moment that you can close off a big chunk of that. You're not going to use it. So it gives you a big giant helping of points, like, all one aside. This is kind of a point salad game, which isn't always my cup of tea, but it works as far as that goes. But those are things you learn. And so you have these three things: you have these planets, you have these gas clouds, and you have these chunks of outer space. And you're always looking, on your turn comes along, you're always looking for a way to, like, close that off or expand the areas that you think you're going to have control over. And as with any area control game, I've always really enjoyed, like sometimes, like, there's a situation where it's like, in this case, it's better just to draw, like close something off when the other person's going to be able to get ahead and beat you. It's like, so there's those little actions and moments where, like, it isn't so much of scoring a bunch of points yourself, it's you're giving up points that you could possibly score, so you can make sure that you take points away from your opponent as well. And so you have that kind of, like, well, it's like, by me costing you 7 points and me gaining 4, that's really like an 11-point swing. And that was, like, it's kind of like that process beyond the actual tiling that I really enjoyed. I guess the bottom line is that I really like games that make me think, games that make me feel like I'm clever when I find that perfect tile in that perfect spot, and I really like games that keep everybody kind of involved and watching the board instead of staring at their phone, like checking the news or whatever, because of the fact that when you draw a tile and you're picking which side you want to use, there's that wonderful moment where, like, you have your plans, you have your ideas of what you want to do with the galaxy to get yourself your points, and so you're constantly watching to see what the other people are doing, so you can make sure that either A, they're not messing with you, or B, what you can do to mess with them and what they're creating as well. And so for all those reasons, I really enjoy Galaxy of Trian. And plus the fact that it's kind of like a lighter game. It isn't a super brain burner. I put it in the medium category as far as like the whole kind of like Euro, because this is more Euro game than it is, I would say, a thematic game. But it's a Euro with a great theme, and the theme really is embodied by the artwork and the setting and the process that you're undergoing. So there you go. For all of those reasons, I urge you to check out Galaxy of Trian. If you have any questions about the gameplay or anything you want to ask me, go ahead and post those, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And as always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, you have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye now.